Hey guys, Jinx here, and today I want to share with you my raid boxes. This is probably my most requested video whenever I mention that I have a couple boxes worth and prepped for raid season, so I figured it might be a good idea to just go through them in a more casual format and just share with you what my raid Pokemon are. So I'm just going to go through them and talk them through. This will definitely be a longer, less edited video, so maybe fire up some PokeMMO and throw me on your second monitor and we'll go through everything that I have prepped for this upcoming raid season. There's just a few things I wanted to talk about before I go through my raid boxes. You'll notice when we're going through the boxes that it heavily focuses on certain types and not so much on others, and I kind of wanted to show you guys why. Types like fire and water and fighting are really useful for, well, I'll show you exactly why. Because if we go through all the different typing charts, you can see that there's pretty common themes on which ones you can get by with. For example, if we go to normal, you can see that the types that are strong against it is just fighting. So if there's ever normal raid bosses, then you pretty much need a fighting team for it. So you need fighting for the normal ones, especially Lunar New Year. There's a lot of normal bosses. If we come to fire, you'll see water, ground, rock. So this is the reason why water is a really good type in my opinion, because you'll see water is effective against a lot of these types. Electric, you need ground, so you basically need a ground team. Anytime you come across an electric one, the only one that you're going to be able to beat it with is electric if you're going for the super effective damage cap. When we come to ice, you see we have fire, and you'll see I have a lot of fire types. That's because fire is strong against a lot of types as well. We go to ice, there's a lot of good options, but fighting and fire, if you have those two, you're pretty much covered here. You don't really need like an offensive steel team, because there's nothing that steel is super effective against that isn't super effective against something else. So there's not really much point in heavily investing in steel type Pokemon. If we go through all the types really quick, with fighting, you can see you might want a psychic team or even some flying Pokemon. You'll see psychic come up a couple other times. For example, we go to poison, and then, hey, look, if you have a ground team organized, you're already good, or having that psychic double up is a good idea. We come to ground, we got water again. We come to flying, and you'll see this is where you might want an electric or even a rock team. I have quite a few electric because thunder spam is just so strong. With psychic, bug, probably not your top priority, but having a good ghost maybe would be good, but dark is better because dark is going to hit psychic and ghost types really effectively. So that's what I'd focus your efforts on. Again, as we go through bug, you see you got that fire again. So if you have a good sun team, you're good to go. With rock, we got water again. So if there's a rock boss, you got your rain team, you're good to go, or even your fighting team. Going to ghost, again, having that dark team, you're going to cover both your psychic and your ghost, rather than trying to specialize on just like if you get fixated on psychic and then you want to build ghost types and dark types. It's good to have some ghost types, but having a strong dark team is definitely a higher priority. If we go to dragon, you can see ice, dragon, and fairy. Again, there's not very many things that dragon is super effective against, so this is where I'd recommend mostly investing your time in just have a couple ice Pokemon and you're pretty much good to go, because ice is more effective against more typings. And then coming up to dark, again, you have that fighting team, you're covered against your normal types, you're covered against your rock types, and you're covered against your dark types, and even your steel types, which can be fighting or fire. So you can see fighting, fire, ground, water, and electric are pretty much like the top priorities, and a couple dark Pokemon. So there's a lot more overlap on certain offensive typings, which is why you'll see as we go through the boxes, there's a lot more focus on certain types than others. That's not to say that you shouldn't have some niche picks. Let's say, for example, I'm not expecting this to be a raid boss, but I just think it's a good example. If we get like Gastrodon as a raid boss, he has water and ground typing. So you see water and you're like, okay, I'll just bring thunder spam, and you just go electric and thunder spam it. But obviously with the ground typing, you can't do that. And with ground typing, you'll be like, okay, well, I'll just water spam it, but it's got water typing, so you're not super effective anymore. This is one of those really niche cases where the only super effective type against it is grass. This is why, as you see, we go through the raid boxes. I have a couple of grass Pokemon. I wouldn't go super into it, but it's good to have a couple of those off more niche picks. I like to have a little bit in all the typings, but If you're tight on time and you know event season's coming up, then investing just in those general types is probably best, and maybe leave the grass types to the end. The last thing before we get into the actual raid boxes, I know I'm making you wait a long time, but this is a really good resource as well. I cover a lot of these in my own raid boxes as I go through them, but I just thought, going back and looking it over, that this would be a really good resource to point out to you guys. This is the PokeMMO Raid Den Discord, and I'll post a link in the description, so check it out. This has Dragotamer and me and a couple others, but mostly Dragotamer, has gone through a ton of effort in building guides on what Pokemon to build for each raid boss. He has extensive guides on each of the previous year's raid bosses, but he's made these awesome kind of infographics here, so what the top picks of each type would be, and why, and their abilities, recommended natures, and some move sets, especially if they have egg moves or something like that. There's some more detailed broken down bits in the bottom, and some alternatives if you just want to add some further depth. He has this in all the different types, so you got a bug guide, grass, he's got them for all of them, even flying if you're doing rain versus no rain. He's got really good, really detailed guides on all this. Again, you'll see a few less on certain typings. For example, Ghost, there's not too many things that you're going to use a specific Ghost team for, whereas if we go and find something like, if I were to guess, a Fire or Sun, you're probably going to see a lot more options because this is much more useful, and this should be a higher priority pick for you. So definitely check out this Discord and join it. There's a big community of people who are always interested in helping out. There's a ton of awesome guides, a ton of my own videos linked there for specific guides, and most importantly of all, these infographic raid guides I think are really useful for building out your raid teams. So with all that out of the way, now let's get into my own raid boxes. So I've organized them all here by their typing. I've started with just the legendaries separated out. If you have time to go through and catch the legendaries, I highly recommend doing that before raid season. However, if you're limited on time, I have separated these so that you have a lot of good ideas, but I do want to just get them out of the way early. So between all three birds, you're going to get great use, either Zapdos for Thunder Spam, Moltres for any Sun team, or Articuno if we need any Ice for maybe a Dragon raid. All three of these are going to be really solid picks. In addition, the three dogs, Raikou, obviously for Thunder Spam. Entei is one of the few great fire special attack physical attackers. So just with Sacred Fire, he can do a lot of damage. So I highly recommend having him as a physical attacker for your Sun team. Suicune also as just general water attacker if we have a rain raid where we're setting up rain and trying to hit with our water types. Suicune is a really solid pick for that. Jirachi and Shaman also have a lot of potential use. Jirachi has a lot of support moves. In addition, just has a lot of variability in the way it can be played, so just a good pick if you have it. I wouldn't go out of your way and spend a ton of money as raid prep because you might not even get much use out of it, but as a steel and psychic attacker, it can be a pretty good pick. Shaman also, and if you have the Gracidia, now is a good time to invest in them to get Sky Shaman, because Gracidia always goes up a lot during the Lunar New Year, so if you need to, right now would be the time to invest in your Gracidia flowers and get your Sky Shaman ready. Probably not going to see much use for a grass type, but you never know. It's always good to have some prepped, and I do have some grass Pokemon in here. Before we move on, just a couple quick notes. First off, if you're looking for some just quick recommendations, you're just starting out in raids, you've never done an event before, check out this video, the 3 teams to prep for event season. This will prep you for pretty much most of the raids. There might be a couple niche Pokemon that you have to pick up in addition during event season, but between the Pokemon in these 3 teams and just having a general Sun team, which is pretty easy to slap together, you're pretty much going to be prepped for most raids. My raid prep is far beyond what you need to do, but again, I do get asked a lot for recommendations, so I just figured this is all of the things that I have made in this video, but those 3 teams plus Sun team are really all you should have, especially if you're a newer player. I also have not moveset any of my Pokemon. Some of them are still moveset from last year. I wouldn't worry too much about investing a lot in TMs and getting moveset, just because you never know what you're going to need. Oh, hi Jinx. Cat visit. You never know what you're going to need. You gonna come sit? Because you never know what you're going to need. You might need to change up your moves. You might have a move that hits really hard. Sometimes you might want Overheat versus Flamethrower, depending on if you have room for an accuracy boost. So don't stress too much about movesets. Those are so easy to fix during the event because you just go slap on some TMs. I wouldn't stress too much about them in advance. Starting out with our Sun team, here is our bread and butter for Sun, and that is Ninetales. You can also use Torkoal as a Sun setter. I switch back and forth depending on the raid. I just brought in my Gym Rerun mons over here. Torkoal is really good if you want slower physical attacker, especially if you're going to be running like Trick Room. You never know when you might need a Trick Room Pokemon, but I run mine physical because of my Gym Rerun, and I just have Flare Blitz on it. It can hit for a surprising amount of damage. I've used this one in quite a few raids actually, but 9 times out of 10 you're going to be using Ninetales. So if you're only going to prep one, I'd recommend just bring a hidden ability Drought Ninetales. The main move you're going to be using with him is either Incinerate or Flamethrower Overheat, depending on if you have an accuracy boost, but Incinerate's really nice for picking off berries from the raid boss. Having a Heat Rock in advance is really smart because Heat Rocks usually become a little scarce during the raid season, so you'll probably want to buy that in advance. Getting into our attackers, I'm going to blow through these pretty quick because most of these guys are going to have the same role. You're going to have Volcarona, who you're basically just going to want Modest on all your special attackers and Adamant on all your physical attackers. I'll start with all my special attackers. So we have Volcarona here. Charizard, make sure he has used a hidden ability patch. You can just use an ability patch Fire on him to get that solar power for a huge damage boost in Sun. Magmortar, Infernape is really good in either physical or special, but I like it as a special attacker. We have Houndoom, who's also nice because it does that dark coverage. And Blaziken is another one, can be physical or special. We also have your basic Gym Rerun Typhlosion, and if you have it, Heatran is a nice addition. I guess he should be up with the Legendaries. All these, there's not much to say about them, just make them Modest, and hidden ability on Charizard's kind of the only thing to really watch out for. Vital Spirit on Magmortar is nice to have prepped just in case there's a mechanic that puts everybody to sleep. So he can be kind of in a niche pick if there is a mechanic where, say, at like 50%, it puts everything to sleep. Now you have that Vital Spirit so that you know he's going to be at 50% on that turn, so you can put your Magmortar and time that correctly. Some good recommendations for physical attackers in the Sun team, because I always recommend having a good split between physical and special for all types, is Arcanine, can hit pretty hard as Adamant. Darmanitan is one of the hardest hitters. Even with some of the other off stab moves, his physical attack stat is absurdly high, so you won't even always be using him for the stab bonus, but Darmanitan's probably one of the #1 Pokemon you should prep for raids. Emboar, also with the hidden ability, Reckless, is really important on this guy. I should have mentioned that also on Darmanitan. Sheer Force is really important, but Reckless, Emboar, and Sheer Force Darmanitan are both going to hit insanely hard in pretty much any raid that you bring, even if they're not getting their stab boost. Like a Head Smash on Emboar can do a lot of damage, especially with that Reckless boost. One other kind of off meta pick that I put together just in case, because you can never have enough raid Pokemon, is the hidden ability Guts Flareon. My thought is maybe if there's like a poison pool that goes down at the beginning of a grass poison type raid or something like that, and you just get immediately poisoned upon entry, it might be a good way to activate that Guts boost. And then let's say there's a raid that does have poison grass type, you have that super effective fire typing, and it might even activate your Guts for you. Him with Flare Blitz will hit very, very hard. He has a really high attack stat, and with that Guts boost is just gonna make him have an insanely high damage boost. So your Sun team is pretty straightforward. Most of the time you're just going to put out a Ninetales and then just spam attackers, but I do recommend having some physical and having some special attackers, because you never know when a boss is going to have a really high physical defense or really high special defense, and you always want to be prepped, or even a mechanic that stops it from taking any damage from physical or special. It's always good to have a couple of things prepped for that. As for IVs, I've clicked through mine, but you'll see almost all of my raid Pokemon are 20 to 25 plus in all 3 defenses, and then 31 in their primary attacking stat and 31 in their speed stat. While defensive IVs aren't really necessary in like 90% of raids, it can be really beneficial to get an extra turn to get an extra attack off. So let's say you're cutting it tight and most of the time you're just throwing things in, trying to hit the damage cap and then getting knocked out. It can really help to have a Pokemon go in, take a hit, survive the hit, and then you get 1 extra attack so that you aren't so close on your percentages on that final bit. Especially if you're playing with some people who don't have properly prepped raid Pokemon and they're maybe not quite hitting the damage cap each turn, surviving for one hit can be the difference between failing and resetting, or being able to just clutch a win because you survived that one hit. Now, of course, a lot of the final raids are really important to die specifically at specific times. Those I don't really go out of my way to prep because you never know what the strategy is going to be. And I figure with those, it's probably easier to make them 1x31 or 2x31 with low defenses if we have to during the event. Whereas if there's a raid that requires high defensive IVs, the breeders will be much more limited because it is a harder thing to breed. So I rather just have mine prepped, so pretty much all of mine are going to have that defensive IV. Moving out of our Sun team and into our Fighting team. This is probably the next most commonly used team that you're going to use. Now, of course, we do have some crossover here, so like Emboar, Infernape, and Blaziken can be brought down and used here. I've mostly just gathered them in their most ideal typing. So Lucario here is a really nice pick, because he has a really high special defense stat. So he's going to be one of our Focus Blasters or Aura Sphere, depending on if you have an accuracy boost. There's not very many special attacking fighting types, which is why I like having Lucario and Infernape and Blaziken to be special oriented with modest nature, just because, again, it's good to have that split. Most of yours are going to be physical attackers, so Medicham, this is probably one of your most used raid Pokemon. This would be on the top 5 to prep for raid season, up there with Emboar and probably Gallade. Pure Power doubles his attack stat, which makes it insanely high if you have good IVs and you go EV train it. Make sure it has Adamant nature, and then you have a nice split between a physical attacking, fighting type, and psychic type. Hitmonlee, one of my favorite Pokemon. I really like this guy. I like risking it with the Reckless boosted high jump kick. 90% accuracy. If you can get an accuracy boost with Defog or something like that, that's awesome. But 130 base power means you can actually slap a wide lens on this guy and make it 99% accurate. And it's hitting about as hard as most other fighting types close combat that has a choice band on it. This extra power boost, boosted even further by Reckless, is just an insanely high boost. And if you don't know, in raids, you can only have one item on your team. So if you are running a full physical fighting team, you're going to want everybody to have choice bands, but you can only have one. So the nice thing with this guy is you can put a wide lens on him and go high jump kick, and you'll probably still hit the damage cap. And while it is not 100% accurate, 99% accuracy is pretty damn good, especially when you're saving on that item slot. Next, Primeape. This guy's got that Vital Spirit. Vital Spirit is really useful. You'll see that also on a couple other Pokemon, like I mentioned on Magmortar, but not falling asleep is really useful in those mechanics where they make you fall asleep. This guy was vital for the Darkrai raid last year, and he might be useful for the Darkrai raid again. We don't know if the mechanics will change, but I would basically expect to see Darkrai come in with a Dark Void at some point, so you're gonna definitely need a Primeape for that fight. He's not the hardest hitter, and he doesn't have an ability that boosts his power, but that Vital Spirit is really gonna be beneficial. Moving on to Sock. Sock's really cool because he has Sturdy. He's got decent attacking stat, but really we're looking for that Sturdy. Being able to tank 2 hits can be make or break in a raid. Like I mentioned before, why I have higher defensive IVs, same thing with having Sturdy. If you need to just tank a bunch of hits, then having Sturdy users in can be really useful. We've even seen it in the past. I can't remember exactly which raid it was, but there was at one point where they basically just spam a bunch of attacks, and you can even just take a bunch of Sturdy Pokemon and put Rocky Helmets on them to get even a little bit of chip damage in as the boss spams through and knocks everybody out. Conkeldurr, another solid physical attacker. I like to train mine up fast. You might want to make a slow one. It's a good backup to have in case you need Trick Room. I don't go out of my way to prep Trick Room Pokemon, but this guy, again, just a ton of coverage on his moves, but you're probably just going to be spamming strong physical attacking moves. Throw a Tailwind behind him, and even with his low speed stat, you'll probably still outspeed the raid bosses. Gallade is up there with one of the top 5 Pokemon to prep for raid season. Oh, the cat's back. Gallade probably got the most use out of almost any Pokemon in the last raid season for me. Just Sacred Sword and Psycho Cut were absolutely vital in so many of the raids. His sharpness boost makes it a huge bonus on those fights, and having Psychic and Fighting type coverage is really, really useful for getting that stab bonus. I would absolutely recommend making a Gallade. Heracross is nice, again, dual coverage, so you have that fighting boost, but also you have bug coverage. So you could spam Mega Horn or even maybe Pin Missile or something like that. If you're going into a Dark or a Psychic type raid, you have this useful coverage with a bug type and a hard physical attacker. There's not very many good physical attacking bug types. Well, there's not very many good bug types in general, but Heracross definitely has the attack stat to back up his bug typing. And you'll mostly just be using him for his fighting type. His Guts boost is also really useful, as I mentioned with Flareon before, if they have something where like you come in and it burns everybody right off the bat, similar to the Heatran raid, then you're gonna definitely get some use out of this guy. Instead of having your attack or being forced into a special attacker, it might be really useful to have that Guts work on your side and turn the flame pool against the boss. Next, Machamp, basically same kind of deal. He's got that Guts boost. He's also got the ability No Guard, which means you can actually use Dynamic Punch with him, which is a really hard hitting attack. So I'll probably slap Dynamic Punch on him, probably Ability Pill him, and put him on the No Guard, because a No Guard Dynamic Puncher can hit really damn hard. And Mienshao, another really strong pick. If we have a boss that uses Intimidate, you got that Inner Focus. Also, you're basically just going to be using probably like close combat, and she's got a high attack stat, so she's another nice one to have on the team. So that's it for our legendaries, our sun team, and our fighting team. Let's move on to the next ones. In the next row, we have our ground attackers. So I have a lot of ground attackers prepped here. There's a lot of great ground types and a lot of dual coverage in the ground type. So starting out with our Sand Setter, there's going to be a lot of raids, and this was an underutilized technique that I think went underutilized last year when me and my team used it, especially on like Togekiss. Going sand and defensive and rock spamming was way more useful in my opinion than Thunder Spam. The reason being, Togekiss has a really high special defense stat. Here, let me bring it up here. I know a lot of people were really struggling with the Togekiss raid last year. That's because it has 115 special defense and only 95 regular physical defense. So when my team ran it and we just basically spammed rock attacks and sand and we just tried to outlast it with our defenses and spamming rock attacks, it was really easy to hit the damage cap. Whereas when I tried to jump in, especially once the community went on to the rain and thunder spam, it was painful to try to complete that raid on alts. Personally, I think that defensive raid strategies are, I hope we see more use out of them, but I think that they're really useful. Getting more attacks in, even with weaker attackers, is way more beneficial than just getting one attack off and then dying every time. Especially with something like this where basically you needed a Zapdos with choice specs to hit damage cap on Togekiss, and you can only bring one of those, so it was a bit of a pain and a slog trying to get through that. Tyranitar is great because it sets up your sand and can hit really hard and is decently fast. So you can bring him in, you can run Stone Edge or whatever physical attack you want for your rock types, or you have your ground types. Now I said that this is a ground column and he isn't technically ground type, but ground and rock have a lot in common and they're going to be overlapping a lot. So he can definitely be used on your rock or your ground type, but I wanted to mention him here even though we're going to be talking about rock types a little bit later. He does boost, just in case you don't know, with sand, rock types special defense in the sand. So it's good to have one of these ready just in case you want that sand boost. In addition, this specific one I use for the pumpkin fight. We don't know if the pumpkin fight's going to be the same as last year, but if it is, you want just a high defensive, adamant, physical, 31, and 3 times 25 plus in your IVs, adamant, attacking Tyranitar. And this is what you're going to use for the pumpkin if we use the same strategy as last year. That is, if you're using the Gothitelle strat. Moving on from him, we're going to be looking at our Earthquake Spammers. That's basically all the rest of these guys are going to be doing. Some of them can have rock attacks for that extra coverage, but most of them are pretty much just Earthquake spamming. Krookodile is great as a ground type attacker and also nice to have for dark types in case you come across like a Psychic Raid or something like that. So having Earthquake and Crunch and Assurance can be really useful on this. Assurance can be really strong if you coordinate with your team and you make sure that somebody hits it first and then the slower ones hit it with Assurance. It's a great way to get a huge damage boost off of it since it doubles the attack power from 60 to 120 if you can make sure that you don't attack first. Next, everyone knows Garchomp has crazy stats. I highly recommend having a Garchomp. Rough Skin is a nice boost, but it's not even really necessary You might also want to try Sand Veil. Again, being able to tank a hit off a miss can be really useful, but Rough Skin, a little bit of extra chip damage is really nice. So I'd probably make sure you have the hidden ability on there. Adamant's best, but if you have like a PvP Jolly one, that's probably fine too. You're probably just going to be spamming Dragon Claw and Earthquake with this guy, so that's pretty much all I'd recommend having on him. Marowak's another really interesting one because it does have the Lightning Rod ability, and there has been some instances where certain raids get kind of walled by Lightning Rod, where the AI might get confused off the Lightning Rod. Immunities can mess with the AI, so this could be kind of a cool off-meta pick. I wouldn't go out of my way to prep this guy, but he has decent attack, decent speed, and he's got a unique move, which is cool too. Gliscor, another really solid pick. This is actually just my Heatran Gliscor. Doesn't need to be too special. I should probably have a more specific one for raids, but this guy is made to basically just go in, hit once, and die. I have a tanky one for PvP, so if we need a tanky one like an Impish, I do have that prepped also in my PvP box. Mamoswine is great as an Earthquake spammer or as an Ice physical attacker. It's hard to find Ice physical attackers, and I do have an Ice team separate from him, but I did include him here just because you're probably going to be using ground teams more than ice teams. So it's nice to have him, and he would be one that I do highly recommend building because it double coverages. So now you have ice for like if we get Salamence back, or even if we get another dragon type raid, but you also have that ground type because we're pretty much guaranteed to have a couple of electric type raids where you just spam Earthquake. Rhyperior is another good pick. He was used in one of the final bosses, I think it was Jirachi, so if there's a Trick Room boss, he can be really useful for that. You can invest in defenses, which can be really good, or even just run him speed and run like max speed EVs, and with a Tailwind behind him, he should still outspeed pretty much all the raid bosses unless they have Tailwind themselves. Him with the Reckless ability can boost a lot of really good moves, but even just with this Rock Wrecker move, 150 base power, and then going in, hitting once, and though it has a cooldown on the next turn, you just die anyway. So if you want to just spam Rock Wrecker, that's pretty much all you have to do. I'm pretty sure it was Jirachi we did that on last year, and that was his role, and he did it great. Other than that, Flygon is one of the great ones because he has both either physical or special potential. I use the special one mostly because, again, Heatran raid, special modest Flygon is really useful for that, to spam Earth Power, but you can have a physical one as well. So I have one of each. I use the physical one on Red, and I use the special one on Heatran, and it's nice to have both prepped. As you'll see, pretty much all the guys we talked about, not pretty much, literally all the ones we've talked about so far, have been physical attackers. So like I mentioned, there's some mechanics that prevent taking damage from physical attackers, so it's a good idea to have some special ones prepped as well, which is where Flygon and our next one, Nidoking, come in. You want to make sure you have the hidden ability on Nidoking, and with sheer force and modest and special attack investment, he's going to be our best Earth Power user. Since Earth Power has a chance to lower the target's special defense, that goes away when we have sheer force and we get that damage boost. So that's going to be the best way to run a special attacker for your ground types. We also just have our Excadrill. Excadrill has Sand Rush and Sand Force. Both are really useful. For raids, I'd say Sand Force is probably better. If you get a Tyranitar in there and then you get Sand Force, you're going to have a huge boost to your attack on somebody who's already a really strong physical attacker. He's also got Steel typing, which can be useful in certain raids, depending on the type. So that's it for our primary ground type attackers. Again, there's a lot of off typing there with like Mamoswine being Ice, Garchomp being Dragon, and even Nidoking maybe with some poison moves, but that's pretty much that for those guys. Next, and this is a really highly recommended team that I would present to you, is Rain Team. This is another one that I think was underutilized last year, and when we used it in certain raids, had a lot more success than trying to spam Sun, like for example against Steelix. I had a much easier time spamming Rain on Steelix than I did on spamming Sun. And this is just trying to spam water attacks. So we have our weather setters, whether you have Politoed or Pelipper, both are totally fine. This is my Politoed that I use for Heatran, and then I have Pelipper, which I also use for Heatran, and I would recommend just going with a special attack investment on this guy so that you can potentially get some extra damage off. He can be really useful too, because if you're going for low accuracy moves, Pelipper can come in and put a defog or even drop a water sport. He's got some support potential, but mostly he's going to be bringing in Drizzle. If you have a Politoed, make sure you have that hidden ability for that Drizzle set. But especially Defog, since you're going to be with water types, spamming Hydro Pump, which is low accuracy, Defog can be a really good benefit for that. So having a Pelipper ready is highly recommended. Next, into our main water attackers, everyone probably already has a Blastoise. No matter what gym run you're doing, you probably have a Blastoise in it for Water Spout. So just make sure you have max special attack, max speed, a plus special attack nature, and then you're going to just Water Spout with this guy. The other Water Spout user that actually hits even harder, a lot of people don't know that, but Octillery has a higher special attack stat than Blastoise. This is the highest special attacking Water Spout user in the game. Wailord can be another good option for this, but Octillery will pull out the highest power Water Spout. It's an egg move on him, so make sure you do breathe the egg move over, and yeah, basically just going to be spamming Water Spout with him. He's also got the benefit of Suction Cups, so if you do come across something like in the Heatran raid, which this is what I have this guy prepped for, you do have that Suction Cups if they roar you out or Whirlwind or any of those types of moves that's going to swap you out. If you make sure you time your Octillery correctly, then you know that you won't get swapped out and you cut the RNG out of the fight. Moving on to our water attackers, Empoleon is a really cool pick because he has competitive. Now competitive might not seem that useful, and it's a hidden ability on Empoleon, so you do need to use an ability patch to get it. But it can be really cool because if they come in and they have something like Intimidate or something that's going to lower your special attack in general, a lot of them use status moves that lower your stats when you come in. He immediately just gets a stat boost. So competitive is going to be a really solid pick for Empoleon because he's going to come in and immediately just have a damage boost. While I'm talking about competitive, I'll also mention Melodic here. I don't have it on this Melodic, but again, a really useful boost is if you have a Melodic, you can actually run competitive on it, which is going to be great for getting that boost if they have some mechanic in the fight that lowers your stat as you come in. Other than that, just some other water type attackers that I'd recommend. Ludicolo is kind of cool because it has Swift Swim, so if we come across something that maybe is really fast with Tailwind or something like that, it'd be nice to have Ludicolo come in and not have to worry about it. Kingdra has the same thing. This is just my Heatran Kingdra, so he can come in, he hits really hard, he's a great solid pick. Rotom Wash is another really good one, and the nice thing about building a Rotom is you can swap the typing. So it might be worthwhile having a couple different typings, but I just have one main Rotom. I have my Lunatone Rotom, but I wouldn't really recommend that for raids because of the weird EV spread. But yeah, just having even a couple Rotoms, maybe one for a Sun team, one for a Water team, and then whatever other build you want. But I just keep mine as Rotom Wash. Nice for the Levitate. He's just a solid pick. Everybody knows Rotom's a solid pick in this generation. Sharpedo's a nice pick because it's a physical attacker. As we've seen, everybody in this row is a special attacker. There are not very many physical attacking water types, and Sharpedo is a solid pick for this. He's also got the dark typing, so he can be used in a variety of raids, but he's going to be our first physical attacker. We also have Gyarados, who's another really solid physical attacker. He's got the Intimidate. We might even get a stat decrease on the raid boss if you bring in Gyarados and potentially proc an Intimidate. You can also potentially get Moxie stacks if you use an AoE move and somehow survive depending on some mechanic, but you might be able to kill an ad and get a boost. I wouldn't really count on that. This is just one that I like to use when sweeping PvP. That's what I built this guy for. Crawdaunt is one that's super underrated because its hidden ability is adaptability. Now, a lot of people don't know adaptability, but adaptability gives an extra 50% boost. It's basically doubles your stab boost, so having adaptability on Crawdaunt, who has a pretty decent physical attack stat, is gonna hit really damn hard. You're getting a huge boost. He's got that unique Crab Hammer move, which isn't 100% accurate, but 100 base power. If you can even get like a defog, maybe your Pelipper comes in and defogs so that everybody can Hydro Pump spam, you bring in your Crawdaunt and you can Crab Hammer and hit damn hard with 100 base power, double stab boost, and he's just gonna hit really damn hard. Kabutop's another nice pick because, as we know, it does get the Swift Swim boost, so you have a physical attacking Swift Swim user. I should also mention at this point, I haven't said it yet, but not all of mine are level 100. I would highly recommend bringing more up to level 80 rather than getting them all up to 100. You don't need them at level 100 unless you're on a very, very final raid. Almost all the raids during event season level cap your Pokemon at level 80. So try to get all your Pokemon up to 80 and then move on to another one. And once you have most of them at level 80, then you can start pushing to the level 100s. But the level 100 ones are going to require such specific builds anyway. Honestly, even with prep, you're probably going to have to build a bunch of new ones regardless, unfortunately. It's good to have them prepped because you might save yourself some prep time during the event, but make sure you're at level 80 with the majority of your Pokemon. That means you can go into the daily, just regular raids that come out, and you don't have to do prep throughout those. It might only be that final end game one where you need that level 100 Pokemon team for. With that, that's our water team out of the way. Again, there's a lot of hybrid typing in there. We got a grass type with Ludicolo. We have a rock type with our Kabutops. We got a dark type with our Sharpedos. So we do have some good splits there. But this, I'd say these guys I mostly built to be used on a rain team. Next, moving on to our electric types. These come in usually with a rain setter, and these are mostly just spam thunder. Thunder is 100% accuracy in rain, so you're basically going to set rain with Politoed or Pelipper, and then spam thunder with these guys. Again, I do have a couple physical attackers that I'll recommend, but I'll go through my thunder spammers quickly. Jolteon's a really solid pick. He's super fast. He's got a lot of utility moves as well, with fake tears and setting screens, stuff like that, but nothing too special about him. We have Manectric, which again seems pretty good at first, but once you see that he actually has minus as well, it's a really, really awesome stat boost, especially because if everyone on your team has a Manectric and an Ampharos, it's really easy to get boosts. You don't actually need plus and minus in together. If everybody puts in a Manectric, you all activate each other's minus boost, and then if everyone puts in an Ampharos, you all activate each other's plus boost. So I'd recommend making sure you have those because the plus and minus boosts are great. As a quick editing note, I talked about Plusle and Minun here. At first, I didn't really think that they were that useful because their special attack stat is so low. However, after doing some calculations, if you have them with plus and minus, they hit almost as hard as Magnezone with Thunder. So I do actually recommend building a Plusle and Minun, mostly because then you can just bring a team full of Manectric, Ampharos, Plusle, Minun, and basically you have 4 Thunder Spammers. You don't need to coordinate as much with your team. If all 4 you bring all 4 of these, you can basically just throw them all in. You don't need to organize which turn you're going to bring plus or minus in. You just have 4 solid turns of having plus and minus active at all times. I also have Magnezone. Magnezone's got a really low speed stat, so I made 2. One in case we need a Trick Room for some reason. I just had one built anyway, and then one that's really fast, and this is going to be the main one that you use. The slow one's really nice, and the reason I built a Trick Room one specifically for this, even though I'll probably never use it, is because he does have Analytic, which is a nice damage boost if you go slow. So whether I get a Trick Room off, or if I can just kill a turn and let the raid boss get a turn in, if I survive anyway, then I have that Analytic boost. But 9 times out of 10, actually probably 99 times out of 100, I'm going to be using this fast Magnezone, so that's the one that I'd recommend making. I already mentioned Ampharos, but moving on to our physical attackers. So again, Thunder Spam is great and all, but it's always good to have a backup in case you can't just spam special attacks. I already mentioned previously the Togekiss raid from last season, and a lot of people struggled with it because they were just trying to Thunder Spam. And again, in my opinion, Thunder Spam was not the way to go because Togekiss has a higher special defense stat than his physical defense stat. So if you just run physical attacks, you'll even hit harder and hit that damage cap a lot easier. And with these guys, that'll be even easier to do. So Pikachu with a Light Ball has an insanely high physical attack stat. You can make a special Pikachu as well, with Light Ball again boosting its stats. It's a really solid pick. I use mine with Volt Tackle, and Volt Tackle can be a pain in the ass to get on your Pikachu. I will let you know in advance. This is probably the most painful thing to breed in this entire game, because you need to breed 2 Pikachus and then put a Light Ball on one and then make them breed while holding a Light Ball to get Volt Tackle. Just as a heads up, if you're doing that, you do it on the very, very last breed. You don't need to carry Volt Tackle all the way up. Literally just the final breed, just make sure you have 2 Pikachus, make sure they're opposite genders, and then put a Light Ball on one, and then it'll transfer over. And then you can have the Everstone on the other, and their stats will just have to basically be maxed out from there, because you can't actually pass anything on with a band assuming you want to keep your nature, and I'd prioritize nature for sure. So bring the stats up on 2 Pikachus, make them opposite gender, put an Everstone on one for nature, and then put a Light Ball on the other, and you'll get Volt Tackle. And Volt Tackle being a 120 base power move, with the Light Ball boosting his special or his physical attack and special attack, but we're looking physical here, it's going to hit like a truck. The only thing is, make sure you do not have his hidden ability Lightning Rod. If you have your hidden ability Lightning Rod and you bring this guy in to do a Volt Tackle while everybody else is Thunder spamming, all the Thunder spams will go into your Lightning Rod and nobody will actually attack the raid boss and you'll have to reset. I've seen this happen way too many times, so even though mine's alpha, I just did that because I think it looks cool, but make sure you ability pill it if you do that and then change it back. 2 other really good physical attackers are Electivire, who has that Vital Spirit, which is kind of nice. You'll probably never use it in the raids that you're going to be using these guys on, but it is nice to have it. And our Luxray. Luxray has Guts, which is nice. Again, if there's a poison pool down or fire, like lava pool or something that's going to burn you on entry, or put you down with poison or something like that on entry, then you can just come in, activate that immediately, and get your high power wild charge off. And that's it for these 3 teams. We're going to move on to the next 3. I have 2 more boxes here of sorted teams ready to go, and then some support Pokemon that I recommend as well. These ones I have less prepped for because they're more niche and off-typed compared to what we've seen in previous event seasons. The next one is my Ice Deep. So Vanillix is great, he'll set the snow when coming in, which is a really useful ability. Obviously that's what you're going to want, so hopefully you can get some defensive boost, and in case you don't know, if snow is up, Blizzard is 100% accurate. So you're going to be wanting to set snow so that your special attackers can just spam Blizzard, similar to how you set rain so that everybody can spam thunder. So Vanillix comes in, I'd recommend just going high special attack, make him modest, and then he can basically just spam Blizzard. And then he can use somebody like Glaceon, who can also spam Blizzard. Ice Beam is great as well, but we're probably going to be Blizzard spamming if we're going to be setting Sun, or if we're going to be setting Snow. I don't have a ton of Blizzard spammers. I might make a couple more in advance, but that's pretty much all I have for these. Other than that, I have some physical attackers. I already mentioned Mamoswine previously. Of course, you have Articuno if you have that Articuno that you've caught already, but I also have some physical attacking ice types. So Beartic is a really, really high attack, physical attacking ice type. He also has access to extra speed in the snow or even evasiveness, so you can kind of change your strategy depending on what you're looking for. If there's something that survivability is going to be really important for, Snowcloak might be really useful. Or if you are struggling with speed, Snowplow could be really useful to get that extra speed boost. It's basically Swift Swim over the snow. We also have Weavile, kind of a bread and butter type thing. This guy is going to be used in a whole bunch of raids. I'd recommend this guy a lot. You use him in Heatran for thieving. You can use Ambipom for thieving, that one as well. But he's great because he can thief off items, and he hits really hard with Icicle Spear, and he's got that dark typing, so you can use him in a variety of raids. He's also really nice because this guy is going to be using Icicle Spear, but doesn't have Skill Link. You'll probably want loaded dice on him. And again, as I mentioned previously, you don't want to be doubling up everybody wanting Choice Band. If you have a whole team who just wants Choice Band and Choice Specs, but only one can have it on the team, this is kind of a nice off pick because you can run Icicle Spear with loaded dice, and that frees up one of your item slots, and he's still going to hit really hard with that Icicle Spear. And our Cloyster, he's used in so many things between our trainer reruns or your red refights, or even here in our raids. Skill Link, Icicle Spear, Adamant, just physical attacking Cloyster is going to be great for this. If you run Elite 4 and you have the Wild Taste Cloyster, you might get some use out of that. However, having split between special and physical attack, less useful. You might get some use out of it, but you're probably not going to be using that one as often. I'd recommend having a dedicated physical attacking Cloyster for raids and trainer reruns and your red refights. So moving on, the next one we have is Dark. I've already mentioned a whole bunch of Dark Pokemon, doing Weavile, Houndoom, Sharpedo. We have a lot of access to other Dark types, but these are the ones that I prioritize specifically for Dark typing. Of course, number one, our favorite one here, Absol. So one day this will be replaced with the shiny. I swear I'll get it one day. I'm like 45,000 eggs in, 2 single phases. We'll get there one day. But hopefully I can replace this maybe by event season with my own shiny. But for now, I just have the Absol Alpha, and the alpha ability sucks, so I just swapped it back to a super luck with the ability pill. But yeah, Absol is going to be really strong, either Night Slash user or Sucker Puncher. Either one is going to be really useful. You'll probably get a lot of power out of him because that extra crit rate, in addition to a really high base power, is a solid pick. Bisharp, or this one's not even evolved yet, I gotta level this guy up, is another really strong physical attacking dark type. He's also got that steel typing, which might be useful. You don't really use steel attacks very often in raids because there's usually another type that's more accessible, but it is nice to have that extra coverage. He also has a Defiant, which can be nice because it has that ability where, let's say an Intimidate boss comes in, you actually get an attack boost instead of having an attack lowering. So that can be kind of a useful trick if you know the fight's going to start with Intimidate, or an Intimidate's going to proc at some point in the fight. Shiftry is really cool because it has a Wind Rider ability. This means it gets an attack boost when Tailwind is up, and in raids, you almost always have Tailwind up. So Wind Rider is pretty much always going to be active. He has a really solid base stat attack total, but when you factor in Wind Rider, it's actually really solid altogether. Night Slash is going to hit really hard with this. Even at 70 base power, with the Wind Rider boost, he's going to be a strong physical attacker. He's also got that grass typing, so you do have that coverage for grass types if you need it. We haven't ever used a grass type in raids yet, but maybe one day. Honchkrow, another really solid one. I use this guy in my red refights, and I used him a lot last raid season. Spamming Sucker Punch or even superpowers can be really strong. He's also got flying type coverage, so if we see, I don't know, a bug type raid or a fighting type raid or something like that, you do have that strong physical attacking flying type, so you have that extra coverage. We have Scrafty as well. I use this guy for Elite 4 reruns with the new team. Video coming soon. Sorry I've been so slow with that. Life's been crazy. But he can be a solid pick. He's probably not like the best. I wouldn't recommend him as a top pick. He's mostly used in Elite 4 reruns because of his durability, surprisingly, because Elite 4 reruns are weird, but it's nice. You have that fighting coverage, you have the dark coverage. This might be a good pick to have. Zoroark is cool because you have that modest typing. So that's our first special attacker in this lineup. So we have a special attacker. He's just a cool Pokemon in general. But yeah, he's gonna be basically just a special attacking Dark Pulse user, similar to Hydreigon. I have two Hydreigons here, pretty much just because last year I was running multiple Darkrai's repeatedly, and we were using Hydreigon for that fight. So I needed two so that I could run two at the same time during the fight on two different characters. He's got some utility moves, but he's also got Dark Pulse. That's pretty much what you're going to be using him for the majority of the time. Dragon Pulse is nice. He's got that dragon coverage, and we might even, hey, you never know, maybe you got a Focus Blast user, even though it's not stab boosted. Focus Blast 120 base power is a really strong pick, and Hydreigon does have access to that move. So that's it for our dark type attackers. Like I mentioned, we have already seen a couple of our dark type attackers, but these are kind of my primary dark type teams. Moving on to the next one, these are our primary rock type teams. I talked about Tyranitar being part of this a while ago because having that sand boost can actually really help survivability with these guys. I would probably actually recommend these guys to have defenses higher, especially special defense, more than maybe anybody else, because if you get into a situation where you're going to be using sand to make yourself a bit more survivable, and then you want to bring in your rock type attackers and maybe tank a couple hits using that sand boost, maybe you have some assault vests in your team, you just spam out some rock attacks, this could be a really solid strategy to take down something. Especially, I know a lot of people struggle with that Togekiss raid, that's why I keep bringing it up. Starting out with our Amistar, I'm talking about these guys first because we don't have very many modest rock type attackers, but this is one of our unique rock type attackers. So you can pretty much just use Ancient Power on this guy. It's only 60 base power, but again, you might get that special attack boost or even defensive or special defense boost, which can be really useful during that raid. You would prefer to have Power Gem on this guy probably, but he doesn't have access to it. So this is going to be the highest special base power rock move that he has access to. Again, there's not very many special rock attackers, and 9 times out of 10, you're just going to bring your physical rock attackers, but I like to have some special just in case there's some mechanic that prevents you from using physical rock attacks. He's also really useful for water type, so if you need an extra support on a rain team, this guy can come in and help out. Our next, I'm going to jump forward a little bit, our next modest or special attacking rock type is going to be Lunatone. This is the only rock type with a respectable special attack that also has access to Power Gem. So I know I don't have Power Gem on him. Again, I won't be movesetting anything until raid season when I actually need it, because there's no point in doing that and you might need some weird stuff or not even use your raid Pokemon, you never know. but I'll be probably adding Power Gem to this guy. Because it's an 80 power base move with a decent special attack stat. I think this is a pretty solid pick in general. He's also got access to heal block, so you'll probably get a lot of use out of Lunatone regardless. There's not very many good heal blockers, but Lunatone is a pretty solid pick for that. Next, into our physical attacking rock types, Aerodactyl, always a really solid pick. You can build a separate one for the Pumpkin, but I have this guy built separately from my Pumpkin one because your Pumpkin one's going to be jolly and not as great for attacking, so I built an adamant one in addition to that. I'd recommend putting wide guard on it. I put wide guard on all my Aerodactyls just because it's always useful to have. You never know when you might want to use it. But pretty much he's just going to be a physical attacking rock type who's really fast. He can set Tailwind, he has access to a lot of utility moves, so he is a really good solid pick. Next is Archeops. Now Archeops, you're definitely going to want the egg move Head Smash for this. If you have one for like gym reruns, like if you use my gym rerun team and you didn't put Head Smash, unfortunately, you're probably gonna have to build a separate one for Head Smash. I'd actually probably not recommend having defenses on Archeops because of Defeatist. Surviving's probably not a good thing with him because if you're less than 50% HP, then you're gonna lose a lot of your power. But I still built mine defensive because in my opinion, getting hit once and even if you just survive and get one hit off, that's a big benefit in my opinion, even if the second hit's a lot weaker. But Head Smash, 150 base power, this is an insanely powerful move. Even though it's only 80% accurate, you can use things like Gravity or Defog to ensure the accuracy of it. Again, he has those utility moves like Tailwind or maybe Sandstorm if you need it, but I would really recommend just bringing Tyranitar to set up your sand. Rampardos is the next really solid pick. Again, he's got access to Head Smash, which is going to be an absurdly powerful move. So Head Smash with a crazy high physical stat. He has probably the highest attack stat I've seen so far, 165 base attack. You can see him with Adamant, 31 attack, IV, and 252 attack EV. He has 471 base attack. That with 150 base power move is going to hit like a truck. He's also got Mold Breaker, which is nice because if they have some weird ability that prevents them from being attacked for some reason, that could be a really good pick. Next I have Bastiodon. I probably wouldn't recommend building this guy. I built as just kind of a nice niche pick just in case, who knows, I might need it one day. He's really defensive and he has access to foul play. So he's the highest defense user who has access to foul play. So my thought is maybe I could use him because foul play goes off your opponent's physical attack. You could just use this guy, build him up with maybe even some iron defenses, just have him be really tanky. And if you have a high physical attacking raid boss who can't really hurt him too much, but you can hit back pretty hard because of foul play, that could be kind of a cool niche pick. Again, I wouldn't go out of my way to build this, but I thought it'd be kind of a fun thing to have just in case we ever have some use for him. Next, let's move over to our last box of offensive raid Pokemon. The next type we're going to look at is our primary ghost typing. So this ghost typing is mostly special attackers, but we do have a physical attacker in here with Golurk. Golurk can also be your Earthquake user in our ground team, but I did build this guy mostly to be a physical attacking ghost type because again, I like to have a split between my physical and my special attackers. So Shadow Punch, kind of a cool move. It's the only physical ghost move you're probably going to be using. Yeah, it's only 60 base power, but if you need something to hit with a physical attack and it needs to be a ghost type, this guy is your guy. You can also learn or get the ability Iron Fist to boost it up even further, but I like the Alpha Golurk, so I built mine up as an Alpha, and he gets no guard, which means you can hit Dynamic Punch accurately, and that's a really solid physical fighting move too. But I'll probably be ability pilling him into an Iron Fist user. Next, I got Cofagrigus. I built Cofagrigus as a Trick Room user. He's got really low speed. You can actually put Heal Block on him also. I think that's an egg move, so make sure if you're going to be putting him in as a heal blocker, you could put that in as an egg move. But I thought it'd be nice to have a really slow Trick Room heal blocker just in case we ever need like a Trick Room heal block. In addition, he's got a lot of cool utility moves. I built this guy more for utility with high defenses and low speed. Probably won't see much use, but he's there if we ever need him. Chandelure is going to be probably the #1 pick for ghost types that I'd recommend building. You're going to use this guy in a lot of fights. I have 2, as you can see, because he was using the Darkrai fight, so I needed 2 because I was running 2 characters. And yeah, he's just a really high special attacker. Basically just going to spam Shadow Ball, or even during raids, if you can get if you can get a status on the boss, you can spam Hex for a crazy high amount of damage. That's what we did with Darkrai. Darkrai. You're basically just hex spamming. Gengar's a really nice pick too. I don't have a dedicated poison team, but he's a nice poison user if you ever need that for some reason, but he's mostly just there for the ghost type. He's fast, he's strong, he's a good pick. Haunter's the same. Actually, I use this Haunter for PvP. He should be in my PvP box. I like using Levitate Haunter in PvP, in doubles, because you can pair him with an Earthquake user. So he should actually be in my PvP box, but hey, you never know. Spiritom's another one that's really defensive. This guy might have some niche usage. I wouldn't really recommend building him, but he could be kind of an interesting pick if you want like a rest sleep talk spammer with Calm Mind and maybe some dark type like Dark Pulse or something like that. So I don't have a ton for ghost types, just because anything that ghost types is going to be useful against, you're probably going to be using something else for anyway. So like a dark type team is going to take on anything that ghost type is going to be useful against, because ghost is good against ghost and psychic. So if you just have a strong dark type team, it can take on ghost and psychic as well. And I just happen to have more dark types. So you can build up your ghost roster, but I wouldn't spend too much time on ghost typing. Next, we're going to go into grass, which again, I wouldn't spend a ton of time on this. Anything you're going to be using grass moves into is probably going to have something better for it. Grass moves are good on water, which you're probably going to be thunder spamming, ground, which you're probably going to be water spamming, and rock, which you're also going to be rain and water spamming. So I wouldn't spend too much time on these guys, but I have a couple just in case. With Tropius, just a cool Pokemon. He's also got flying, so you might get some use as a flying user. Ferrothorn, if we ever need like a leech strategy similar to Alpha Suicune last year. He's got that nice ingrain ability, so we can copy that over. He's also really tanky, so you can leech seed and survive for a long time. I remember in the really early raids in like 2023, I believe, when they first came out, we used defensive strategies more, and this guy was pretty useful because you could just set up a leech seed and survive for a really long time after some iron defense. I also got Venusaur here. So Venusaur, Chlorophyll is a nice speed boost, and he's got that poison type, which again, not a very useful type, but you might get some use out of it. I mostly just wanted a good Venusaur, and yeah, this is a good excuse to build one. Serperior actually has a really good utility pick that a lot of people don't know about. He has access to the move Gastro Acid, and I think he's the fastest user of Gastro Acid, and I got some really good use out of this guy last year in raids. I didn't see anybody else talking about this ability, but having the ability to shut off the opponent's ability was super clutch in certain raids. For example, last year in the Bayonet raid, he had Cursed Body, which was really damn annoying, so he would shut off your moves. If you just put Gastro Acid on him, you got not permanent shut off because it turns back on after a couple turns, but you do shut off his ability for a couple turns. I use this with Serperior, and Shuckle also learns Gastro Acid, which I have in my support box, and I'll mention in a little bit. But yeah, Gastro Acid is a really useful ability. Obviously, Serperior is really strong in general also, so I just have a modest special attacking Serperior. Sunflora, similar kind of thing. Solar Power is a huge boost. Unfortunately, he's probably never going to use it, and he's insanely slow. Maybe in a Trick Room team, I built mine fast, hoping that with Tailwind he might be fast enough, but I don't really see myself using this guy, but it's good to have it, just in case we ever need it. And the last one that we're going to look at is our normal and kind of just some off picks that I have built just because I think that they're going to be they're just cool picks. So Porygon with Hyper Beam is crazy powerful with adaptability. We all know how good Porygon is at sweeping the stories, and he can actually be really good at the raids too, because adaptability boosted Hyper Beam with Modest is a crazy powerful attack. Even without a super effective attack, you're going to be hitting damn hard and probably hitting that damage cap pretty easily. I'd build this guy if you're using him for Hyper Beam spam, pretty low defenses because it needs to rest. You probably don't want to be resting, you'd rather just get knocked out, but this can be kind of a cool thing to just throw in any raid, and if you don't have something useful to hit that damage cap, this guy probably will hit damage cap on anything that isn't resisting normal type. Slacking's really similar. You have an insanely high attack stat with 160, and you have access to Giga Impact. So you're going to be hitting for 150 base power with 160 base power attack stat, and unfortunately then you have to take a rest. So I wouldn't recommend building this guy tanky. I know I did, but if I was to go back, I'd probably build these two to be really squishy so that they just come in, hit really hard, and then die. Other than that, Staraptor is another one I've got some use out of. I use this guy in, I believe it was a Jirachi raid, where you could just put a normal gem on him and stab, double edge, or even Giga Impact with Reckless boost on double edge is really powerful. I'd recommend having Reckless on him because it does boost double edge. It also boosts Brave Bird, so that can be a really useful one for this guy too. Make sure you have that Reckless ability on him though. I also have Crobat. Crobat, I've never got any use out of him, but hey, you never know. He's fast, he can hit okay. He's a poison type. I mentioned before, poison types aren't really useful. Infiltrator maybe is a cool ability. I probably wouldn't build this guy. And then Braviary, another strong physical attacker. He does have access to Defiant, but mainly the one that you're going to be looking at is Sheer Force. Sheer Force is another, I think it's a 30% damage boost. We've talked about it a couple times before, but it can be really useful with certain attacks. So I built this guy. As you can see, he's not a top priority for me, which is why I haven't even evolved him, but might as well build him. I just think Braviary is pretty cool, and the alpha from the event was kind of awesome, so I built this guy, but haven't given him the love to level up yet. Ursaring, another Guts user. So a Guts double edge could hit really damn hard, or even a Guts Giga Impact. Again, I've never used this guy before, but if you are in a situation where you're going into a neutral damage target, maybe there's a fire boss and you don't have enough water guys on your rain team to cover everybody, this guy could be really useful. And if you hit with a Giga Impact, stab, especially if they have an ability where they're putting a status on you and you activate Guts, you're probably going to hit damage cap on just about anything in this game. And finally, the two last dragons sitting over here, Dragonite and Haxorus. Haxorus has a crazy high physical attack stat with 147. He is a really strong dragon type. You can have him just to basically spam Dragon Claw. Rivalry can be actually really strong into raids. I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, Rivalry always activates during raids, regardless of what gender it is. So you're going to have a really strong Rivalry boost from here. I might be wrong with that. I'd have to double check that, but I'm pretty sure that's why I built this guy up. And then for Dragonite, I actually built this as a modest Dragonite. We built this when we were testing things for the Heatran raid. We used this guy for a little while before we settled on the final builds. But having a Draco Meteor spammer with stab, or even a Hurricane spammer, this guy can be really useful because he's got that flying type, he's got that dragon type, he's got multi-scale, so he's pretty durable. He can maybe tank an extra hit, but he's a pretty good pick overall. I don't really use mine in raids, or haven't used mine in raids so far, but you could throw him in with maybe a flying team or a dragon team, depending on what you're looking at. So that's it for the attackers, and now we're going to continue on to the support Pokemon. Now, I'm going to skip through some of these pretty quickly because there are some really niche picks that I probably will never use, but just built because I think they're cool. The first one I have on this list, and is not in any list that I have a recommended order or anything, this is just kind of a random list as I threw them in here, is Slowbro. Now, Slowbro's cool because he's really defensive. He's got a good defense stat, but weirdly enough, he does have access to some useful special moves. So he does have that Captivate, he does have some other good ones, like the main reason I thought he might get some use is maybe Heal Pulse. We haven't seen very many raids where healing is necessary, basically other than the Suicune raid, but Heal Pulse might get some use in some raids, so I figured I'd build him. Again, I wouldn't really recommend it, but Chansey's pretty much the same idea. He has Heal Pulse and also Aromatherapy, so you might actually get some use out of that, clearing some statuses. Again, I would not really recommend these guys as your first two picks, but maybe we might, if you want to be really covered on having a whole bunch of builds ready to go, these guys might be useful at some point. These three I built, the Murkrows, you're going to use a Murkrow in almost every single raid you ever run, so I would highly recommend having a Murkrow. The most common build for Murkrow is basically this. You want it really low defenses. High HP is nice because AI likes doing high numbers of damage, so if you have more HP and low defense, and you're going to get one hit anyway, let's say something's going to get one hit with 100 HP, and something's going to get one hit with 120 HP, the AI will typically pick the 120 HP because it likes big number, just like us. So I like having mine with high HP, low defenses. If you go 0-0-0 in your HP defense and special defense, that's totally fine too. You'll probably get one hit no matter what. You need that prankster ability, and he's basically just going to come in here and either set Tailwind or Screech or haze or something like that. If you want to clear a status effect off the boss, you're going to haze. If you want a speed boost, you're going to tailwind. If you're going to screech to lower their defense, that's good too. Most raids, you have multiple Murkrows coming in, serving multiple of these effects, whether you're going to be tailwinding and hazing, or bringing in 2 tailwinds throughout the fight. These guys are absolutely vital. I built some tanky ones too, a defensive one and a special defensive one, for basically the same reason, where you can come in, you can set tailwind, and then maybe if he tanks a hit, you can get a foul play off or something like that. But you probably only need one. I'd go just one with like mediocre stats if you're just building one to prep for a raid season. Exact same thing with Sableye, another prankster with some utility moves, and I like to use my shiny. Luckily it has bad defenses, which is pretty much ideal with Sableye. I have some defensive ones the same way I built with my Murkrow, but majority of the time I'm just using my crappy shiny one. He's got a lot of useful utility moves like screens with reflect and light screen. He's got Captivate to lower their defense, Gravity to boost your accuracy. He's got a lot of really useful abilities and utility moves. So I definitely recommend having a Murkrow and a Sableye in your preparation. Another prankster user, if I skip forward a little bit, is Riolu. You won't get as much use out of Riolu. I've only seen him used in 1 or 2 raids so far, but he can use prankster Screech. And I'm curious about this is Howl. You might be able to get some use out of this boosting your team's attack stats. So that's kind of a cool niche use. That's an egg move, so make sure you get that on there. If you're going to breed this guy up, he'd be a pretty low priority prankster user in my opinion. I just made him because I had so many other things and wanted to keep breeding. Cottony or Whimsicott, either one is totally fine. Again, you can build them really squishy like mine, or you can build them really, really tanky to try to survive a turn or 2. I've seen use out of both. Usually I think that squishier ones are typically preferred, but having a tanky one has been really clutch in certain situations. Between Tailwind and Fake Tears and a couple other utility moves, but basically just coming in setting Tailwind or breaking through one of those like adaptability shields or something like that with Fake Tears is really useful. So having a Cottony for that is what I'd highly recommend. These Altarias I skipped over. I made them for Cloud9. Now Cloud9 shuts off the weather, so I built them to be tanky, so if there's some kind of weird situation or raid mechanic where you want somebody to shut off the weather, I thought this could be a good pick for that. Having something just survive, so maybe just spam Cotton Guard, you can set up a safeguard, and then you can just survive and keep that Cloud9 up while you maybe get some Dragon Balls in or something like that. Until it was brought to my attention that you can actually take a Cloud9 Golduck with skill swap, and if you skill swap the boss, the ability goes off of the boss. It'll kick it off and go back to its original ability after like 2 turns or something like that. But if you Cloud9 skill swap onto the ad, it doesn't change its ability. So you can actually permanently set up Cloud9 by skill swapping onto the ad as long as you don't kill the ad. Now this is a mechanic that might get patched. We see some things like this get patched sometimes. Maybe the devs just haven't noticed or they don't know about it. I don't know. I don't know if it's like an abuse or whatever, but currently, or I should say last event season, if you skill swapped onto the ad, it would keep Cloud9 throughout the whole fight. So that's kind of a cool niche pick. Golduck is also pretty good in rain, so if you need more, I know I have lots in my rain team, that's why I put it as a utility pick, but it can be a decent rain like Hydro Pump spammer as well. Shuckle, the amazing Shuckle, is always a good pick. Make sure he's max defenses. Unfortunately, Power Split and Guard Split don't work on bosses as far as I know. When we tested, it said I don't think you could choose the move even. So unfortunately, I was hoping I could Power Split a boss, but it doesn't work like that. Either way, this guy's really useful to have because I mentioned previously Gastro Acid to shut off the ability of the boss. So you could just bring Shuckle in, he'll probably tank some hits. You could shut off the ability maybe a couple times. And then if you want to tank the hits even better, you can bring this guy in with Leftovers or Assault Vest, especially if you can get a Sandstorm up. He's going to get a special defense boost. Then you can Struggle Bug to knock down the special attack of the raid boss. This is what I used on the Bayonet, who was using special attacks. I would have thought he would use physical attacks. I don't know why he used special attacks, but he was a special attacker. He used Cursed Body. It was a pain in the ass. So I just came in, we set up Sand, I put in Shuckle, Gastro Acid, shut off the Cursed Body, and then just Struggle Bug to take his special attack down, which made us survive even more turns. So this can be kind of a cool niche off-meta pick that you probably won't get much use out of, but you might get a niche pick use every once in a while. I just checked into the box and forgot that I had a couple more raid Pokemon tucked away, so I'll go over those guys now just real quick. They were tucked away because they're not super important, but I might as well mention them. Scizor, a really strong hitter, especially with Technician. Bullet Punch can hit really damn hard. Pinsir, same kind of thing. He's just a strong attacker with Bug type. Again, Bug type's not going to be very useful, but might as well have them if you want all your types covered. Shedinja can be a pain in the ass to get, I can tell you that. If you want an OT Adamant 31-31 Shedinja, buckle up because it's a bit of a pain in the ass. He's nice because he has heal block. He also could come in and potentially wall a boss depending on their moveset. I'm assuming they probably prep for Shedinja and make sure that they can't be walled by Shedinja, otherwise everyone would just bring one of those in and you would just chip away slowly at it. But I'm going to have one just so that no matter what, I can go in and carry a fight if they don't have a moveset that's super effective against it. For a couple of more psychic attackers, Espeon, who's really nice because it has magic bounce. So it can come in if the boss is going to come in and set rocks or come in and do something right off the bat, you just bounce it right back to them. Maybe they're an intimidate user, so they come in, it's like a Gyarados comes in to intimidate, but you bounce the intimidate back on them to lower their special attack, something like that. It's also a good special attacker, so I have him here. Gardevoir, another psychic special attacker. These are just my psychic types got tucked away into a different box. Again, not the most ideal typing for raids. There's just better picks, generally. Alakazam is nice for utility because it has gravity and a couple other useful utility moves, but probably not going to get much use out of it. It's got high special attack, so maybe, but you probably just going to be setting gravity with a Sableye. So yeah. And then Metagross, a nice physical attacker with the psychic type, so you might get some use out of it. Again, I wouldn't go out of my way to build these guys as like your first picks, but if you want a nice off-meta pick, here is a good build. Now this guy, in the very first raid that ever came out, the Lopunny raid at the very beginning, when we were all struggling to figure out how the hell raids worked, basically it came down to Metagross spamming, so you wanted to take one really defensive Adamant Metagross, spam up Iron Defense, and then just tank hits while you Meteor Mashed, and then prayed for attack boosts until you could Hammer Arm. We've come a long way since then. Now we basically just damage cap hit each turn, but this guy he's my memory of that original raid way back in the day. These last guys in here, this is just my Pumpkin team, so you can go check out my Pumpkin video if you want to see this team. I wouldn't really call these guys raids specifically, but these guys, they could be useful in raids as well. Gothitelle, especially as a heal blocker, might get a lot of use. I used mine quite a bit last year, so whether you have Lunatone or Gothitelle, just make sure you have one heal blocker. And lastly, Mr. Mime, this guy was actually in the original Octillery strat for a while because it's soundproof, but we did replace him. We used to not use Xatu, we used to use Mr. Mime when we were developing the strategy, but that strategy came a long way since that original time, and I just keep this guy just in case. You never know when you want a soundproof light screen setter or something like that. And this Blissey was just used in the Alpha Suicune raid. Again, I have a video on that. We don't even know if we're going to get it back, but it's there if you want it. So you can check this guy out. I'm holding on to him just in case that strat becomes relevant again. So yeah, that's pretty much that. I just realized I got distracted when I was talking about Xatu when I forgot the other mons in my raid box, so I'll just cut this into the relevant spot. But Xatu is going to be really useful as a Magic Bounce Tailwind user. Again, 9 times out of 10, you're going to be using Murkrow to set Tailwind, but if they have something where they roar on turn 1, so whatever you put in first gets roared out, that you can't just put Murkrow in, and you don't want to be banking on having a Murkrow randomly get brought in, so just putting a Xatu in that situation will prevent the roar from sending you out. So you could just have your Magic Bounce in, you stop getting roared out, and then you know you guarantee your Tailwind. There was a while where the Miracle Eye was a little bit broken with accuracy buffs too, but that's been patched out, unfortunately, so that, or maybe fortunately, it was a little broken, so you can't use that anymore, but you can still use them as a defogger too. To get an accuracy boost. And lastly, I like Simple Beam on him. Similar reason I've talked about with Gastro Acid. Shutting off the ability of the boss can be really useful. So just having access to that, maybe you set up Tailwind, and if he doesn't die, then you can get off a Simple Beam or something like that. So that's all of my raid Pokemon in PokeMMO that I've done to prep for raid season. I know this was a long video, and it's a little different from my regular content, but I hope it was entertaining listening to me talk through all of my raid Pokemon, and I hope you learned something and maybe came up with some of your own ideas. If you think I missed any, please let me know your recommendations in the description below. Or if you want any more details on the builds themselves and how I'm going to build towards them, also let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe if you want more PokeMMO content. Again, I usually do somewhat different videos, more edited guides and stuff like that, but I do get asked all the time what is sitting in your raid boxes. So here you guys go. This is everything that's sitting in my raid boxes. Everything from the useful ones like Gallade and Medicham, all the way to the ones that I'll probably never use like Bastiodon and Sunflora. So I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day, and I'll see you all in the next one.